Hi, and welcome to my kitchen. I'm Tori, and this is my grandma.
Hi.
Today we're making a Lebanese dish called Tabooley, which is a Mediterranean salad of sorts. It looks like this. This is our video.
This is how we make it. It's not easy. Okay, here's the parsley. Now, as we do this, we see it's not as bright green as the others, and I always discard those.
This one's right there. Yeah.
Wow, nice and green.
This one.
Got it.
Look through and see if you see any more in there that's needs to be taken out.
Got them all. Aha, got them.
Okay, throw it in to the other side.
Ooh, it smells like Tabooley.
And then I always can put it on here and kind of dry it off a little bit. And see, like here's another one that's a little light was hiding in there. One thing about Arabic cooking or Mediterranean style cooking is it's usually very labor intensive. It's not quick. Fast food is not part of Lebanese cuisine, believe me. But then the old ladies that used to do all the cooking in the family, you know, they usually had the whole day, and they would start their dinner, and maybe at 10 o'clock in the morning they'd start preparing for the dinner. And in those families, the older people always lived with the younger ones, and so that was their job, to make sure they did their fair share. They did the cooking.
How's that look?
That looks good. Throw that over here, and we'll dry that off a little bit too. So there's a lot of cutting, chopping, and prepping, and a lot of fresh things that are used. Now, when your grandfather used to help me do this, his idea was to take scissors like this, and he would cut just the outside, just the leaf part.
And to clarify for the video, my grandpa was not Lebanese.
No, he was not Lebanese, but he sure liked the food, and so he was very willing to help me with the labor-intensive part of the work. I find it's easier than using the scissors just to go like that and click it with my thumbnail. Tell you the truth, when I got married, I wasn't so good at cooking. And so that was like in 1959. But after that, I had to learn. And I generally just watched my mother. And it really frustrated me because when I'd ask her, when she's making a food, I'd say, well, how much of this or that did you put in there? And she'd say, I don't know. I just put in a handful, or I just put in whatever it needs. Well, you know what? That's not how most cooks learn to cook. So I went around behind her, and as she was going like this, I was putting a measuring thing in there, trying to find out about how much she was doing. And sometimes it was just a guess. Do you notice that there's two kinds of parsley in here?
Yeah, I think so.
See, look at here.
Yeah, I was gonna say one seems.
This is called flat parsley, and this is curly parsley. And as a general rule in the old country, they used flat parsley.
So I'd say for the significance of this dish to me, I know when I go to a lot of family reunions, they always have tabooley and like kibinaya and grape leaves. I'm a big fan of grape leaves.
Oh, grape leaves are great. Well, now that we've cleaned and prepped all the parsley, now we're ready to process in the food processor. So I'll do the first one, and then you'll do the rest. We put in about this much. That looks about right. Now we're going to put it in here. Put this back down. Lock it, and you do next. That looks done.
I'm being super smart.
There's Okay, our next job is not to play with the dog. We're going to prepare the onions.
Okay.
And green onions, and I think for that much parsley, we're going to need about 2 bunches of green onions. And so clean them first, and then we'll chop them up. And for this, surprisingly enough, I think Grandpa's idea of using the scissors is pretty good for part of the chopping up the onions. Now that we've cleaned all those onions, let's chop them up.
Okay.
Now, start with the green part, and I used the scissors, just that Grandpa's idea was very good, so we'll just do
Oh, I
small.
want them very thin.
And sometimes I can do two at the same time. My grandfather was born about 1865, but unfortunately in the old country in those days they didn't keep track of birth, and we don't know when his actual birthday was, or for sure what year it was. We only have a guess, and some of that comes from census. When he was asked at the when the census people came around and he was asked his age, that's about all the information we really have. However, he was about 20 when he came to America, and we know that from the records when he came across on Ellis Island. Okay, and when he came here, he didn't speak any English, of course, not unusual for immigrants at that time. He quickly taught himself some English, and he became what we could call in those days a peddler. He would buy little things that housewives might need, pins, pans, new pans, various things that they would use in the household, spoons and knives, even mirrors. And he would go from house to house in rural areas, walking, of course, and sell them. And gradually, being very frugal, he had built up enough money to start a little store. And a lot of immigrants from that era did have stores. As a matter of fact, I had any number of cousins and uncles and so forth that owned little grocery stores at one time, before big supermarkets became common. And after about 20 years, he decided he needed a wife. See, so he went back to the old country, and he selected a nice young lady who came from a big city called Beirut. He himself was from a small town called Hamet. They married, and he brought her back to the United States. As it turned out, she was 16 years old. He was 36.
Zoinks.
It wasn't too unusual in those days. They had ended up raising six boys and one girl. When my father married my mother, and she was a French American Catholic, it caused a great deal of consternation in the family. In addition, he had broken the tradition of the oldest son marrying before any of the others, and his older brother was not yet married, so that was another tradition. My father was actually a tradition breaker, I guess. They were quite religious. My grandfather helped to found the Orthodox Church here in Detroit, which is still in existence, thriving. Now it's time to prepare the cucumber. Now this is an ingredient that's optional. In our family we always did it, but most places they don't bother to use cucumber. I think it adds something to it. It gives salad a little bit of a crunch as well as the good flavor. You see what I'm doing here?
Yeah.
I take off the end, and this was something my mother's always believed, that if you go like this, you prevent that pickle from being bitter.
Like this?
Watch your thumb, please. You only got one more. Okay, if you cut that one off, you'd be really out of luck. This is something I don't recommend for somebody, a neophyte. Do you know what a neophyte is?
Definitely not.
No?
No, I do not.
A neophyte is somebody doing something new.
No.
Now look at. See, I'm getting a whole bunch at one time, right? Most people just cut up tomatoes, but for some reason I don't like the skin on tomatoes. It's that's another thing I got from your grandpa. So we peel them. In order to peel them, without damaging them, I make a little teeny cut, X cut in the bottom, put them in here, and then I put very hot water, just about like a dozen up. So I fill it up like this, then I set it aside and let it take about 2-3 minutes. And meanwhile, there's one other thing we have to get ready.
Okay.
And that is the wheat.
The wheat.
It's called bulgur, and we have to soak it for a little bit.
Okay.
The normal way is to soak it, bring the pieces up in the sink and squeeze all the water out, and squeeze and squeeze. It's a lot. It makes messes all over your hand, and I don't like messes. I use some cheesecloth, and I put it in here. Now, once that's been soaked, I can just bring up the cheesecloth and squeeze like this, and I don't get it all over my hands. Now we'll fill that with cold water. Not cold yet. And I always soak for 10. And to make sure I don't forget it and leave it too long, I set the timer, because sometimes I forget. These are nice fresh lemons. We've cut our lemons in half.
Am I doing this right?
The wheat is now ready to be drained.
I'm afraid I'm gonna pop a hole with my
That's all right.
nails.
You can pop all the holes you want. There's a lot of spaces in it. Well, just go and put it right inside the greens. Okay. 9. Okay, get over the bowl and drop it in when.
So you just like grind my hands together?
Yeah, rub, rub, rub to get it little. Okay, put it in there.
Oh.
We're going to cut up the tomatoes now, and tomatoes have a lot of juice in them, so I have a trick that I use. I slice the tomatoes like this, and once I've got them chopped, I put them into this and let them drain out some of that juice out of them. Okay, time to put everything together. You've got the parsley, the wheat in here. Let's put the green onion in.
Like an old pro.
And stir it up a little bit.
Like a seasoned vet.
Okay.
Okay.
Now put in the cucumber. Okay, how about the tomato? All right, now let's put a little salt and pepper. A little salt, a little pepper. Lemon juice to bring out the flavor. And then we're going to put some oil, corn oil. Typically, it's eaten with Syrian bread, or what I call Syrian bread. Other people say pita bread. And most people like to use this as a scoop or a bite in a bite. You see? So how about testing it for me, huh?
Never tried it with the lettuce before.
That's good with lettuce.
It's better with the lettuce, I think.
You can do this by yourself?
No, definitely not.
My mother, I told you, she was really not welcomed into the family because she was different. However, she was determined to be accepted, and so she learned to speak Arabic.
Really? That's
She
not a
learned
difficult
to
language.
do Arabic dancing, and she learned to cook all Arabic food.
Oh, that's cool.
And most of the relatives that were Arabic would acknowledge that she was superior in those efforts.
That is so cool. She just learned to speak.
It's not easy to learn a new language, especially Arabic. It's very
No,
difficult.
very hard language. Vicki, this is a great You did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you so much for helping me.